And welcome to another Cardinals Nest on HBC TV 25. I'm Dean Beckman along with Sports Information Director Donnie Netto. Each week here on the Cardinals Nest, we talk about St. Mary's University athletics, and we usually like to specialize in one of the sports on campus, and the winter sports have officially started. We've got men's hockey coach Bill Moore with us today, so men's hockey will be our spotlight today. And Bill, before we get into some hockey talk, we had a very special birthday on campus this week, right?
We did.
Our friend here, Donnie Netto, is yet another year older.
Yes, he is. And I think I've spent about 45 or 50 of the birthdays with him. So.
Yep. Another year wiser, too.
Right, and you've spent 12 years with him now as head coach for the St. Mary's hockey team. So the 12 years goes fast, right, Bill?
It went really fast.
But I know how much passion and work you put into it, and I know you love every second of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about the start of the season. I mean, it seems like we get on campus, fall season start, and then boom, it's already winter season, and it goes so fast. And now you're trying to get into the heat of it. How do you prepare to start preparing for the upcoming season?
Well, in our instance, I really have to depend on my assistant coaches because with all of the showcases for recruiting and things like that, I leave somewhere in the middle of September, and I didn't come back until the day before season started. So I was gone for 23 days before we started. So I really need to depend on my assistants to make sure that they get all the administrative paperwork done and make sure that the guys have all of the things that they need to be ready for tryouts on the Monday. But I think the biggest thing is that when you're recruiting 20 and 21-year-olds, they've been through this so many times that they know how to get themselves ready. And if you've got good leaders and you've got good captains, they do a lot of good things at their open hockey sessions, and hopefully we'll be ready.
Let's talk a little bit about, you had mentioned the recruiting trail, and it's something that really goes on all year long. But, can you kind of walk people through the process? Because it's different than basketball or baseball, where they go to high schools, watch some games, and kind of recruit that way. You've got to go to all these junior games. And for you, you've got your own niche now up in Canada, eh?
Yeah, well, I think it is really different. And it's ironic because I was president of the High School Coaches Association for 6 years, and now I haven't seen a high school game in probably 6 years. Everything is juniors. We look for 19, 20, and 21-year-old kids. There's really about 5 leagues that we all try to recruit from. The main one is the North American League, and that's spread out all the way from the East Coast to Texas to North Dakota, Minnesota. They're all over, and all 80 D3 teams are trying to get those kids that are coming off of those teams. So it's very, very competitive. You're right, we have tried to find our own niche, and we have done that looking for American kids playing up in Canada. There's also another league that we've gotten some very good players called the Western States League, which is a little-known league on the West Coast. So our philosophy is we want to go where other people won't. And a lot of times I don't see a lot of other MIAC teams, the places that I go, and that's good for us to try to be the only ones there.
Now, I know at least this year with the incoming recruiting class, you do have a couple of actual Canadians, right, with Tyson and Ryan both coming in.
We do, and we at St. Mary's, we like to get the foreign exchange students or the foreign students. The problem we have with the Canadians isn't anything to do with St. Mary's. We have a pretty good international scholarship. They get the same amount of money or similar to an American student. The problems are they do not get financial aid from the U.S. government. And the biggest one is the exchange rate right now. With the Canadian exchange rate being so bad, it's a difficult situation to find the right family that wants to come to the United States and pay the extra money.
Sure. As we talked about recruiting and whatnot, Dean had mentioned you've been here 12 years. What has been the biggest change from when you took over 12 years ago to getting ready for this year, 18-19?
In my opinion, it would be me. I think I've really found that character is much more important than talent. You can win with good kids that'll work their butt off and buy into what you're selling. It's also about their life on campus. And I can find all kinds of good hockey players who don't have great character, but the end game in all of this is, can we get them a job when they leave? And our grads have gotten some pretty awesome jobs over the last 8 or 10 years. And like last year, obviously, and I'm pretty proud of this, but we had 10 academic All-Americans. I think it's finding the right fit for St. Mary's, and that was all about me. At first I was looking for talent, and because we had not been successful for a while, it was tough to get the good talent. And so when we started looking for character kids, that's when we started turning things around and winning again.
You know, Bill, I was just talking to Donnie on the way here today. One of your alumni is Andrew Ketterer, and he just got promoted at USA Hockey, now the director of content. He used to be in charge of their social media, now director of content. So that's just one specific example of kind of what you're talking about. And I think another thing too is that it also has to help you a little bit on the recruiting trail, right? Because you have a good network now of St. Mary's men's hockey alumni, many of whom I know are coaches or have gone on to play some professional hockey of some kind over the years, right?
And the other thing that's really an advantage to me is, yes, I've been here for 12 years, but I was also here for 10 in the 1980s. So I have two significantly different groups of alums that I can work with. I can work with the guys that are 55, 60 years old that are our age, and then we have the younger kids that are now having great experiences at St. Mary's at this time. So it's nice that I'm trying anyway to tie the two groups together to get it to be one alumni base and not just cliques of alums that we work with.
You know, as you prepare for this season, you had mentioned that you rely on your assistant coaches. Ironically, both of your assistant coaches are former St. Mary's players, Jay Reska and Jonathan Elliott. Jonathan being new this year. Talk a little bit about his role and what you're looking for from him as an assistant coach this year.
Well, one of the things, again, it's part of my philosophy of coaching is, yes, I'm developing players and things like that, but I also want to develop coaches. So right now I'm lucky enough to have 10 of my former assistants that are head coaches and 2 that are assistant coaches. So what we try to do, and we probably do things differently than most schools in the country, I don't run practice. We meet in the morning with Jay Reska and Jonathan, and I tell them, or I shouldn't say I tell them, we decide what we want to do that day at practice, and then they take care of it. They make a practice plan, they bring it to me, I pretend that I read it and tell them that it's okay, and then we go with it and they run practice. But it works really well for us because I tend to talk a lot. And when I talk a lot, that means 25 guys are standing still and we're not getting anything done and they're bored. So this way they can keep going with the skill development, and if I need to talk to a player or pull them aside, show them something on the board, everyone else can keep moving while I'm doing the teaching that I like to do. So the other thing it does is it gives them the responsibilities of coaching. And you know, no assistant coach wants to sit there with their elbows on their sticks, you know, with nothing to do, just pushing pucks and cones. So I think that it, one, gives them a sense of being a part of things, and it also gives our players confidence in them if there's ever a day that I can't be there. You know, if I've got to be on a recruiting trip, or you know, if I'm ever sick or something like that, we don't miss a beat because they're used to the assistants running practice.
So walk us through a practice. You know, a lot of our viewers maybe have never been to a hockey practice. Sure. How long are they, and what are some of the skill developments that you do during a typical practice?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we probably do differently than the other sports, our guys still want to play pro hockey. And in hockey, there's no Division II. So with us, every one of our players would be a scholarship player if we were a different sport. So these kids still want to play pro hockey. So we still have to do skill development. It's not all about game preparation and not all about winning. Some of these guys want to go on and try to play pro hockey. So we'll get out, and a typical Monday, for example, we'll come in at 5 o'clock because we don't practice during the school day. and they'll stretch and warm up. Then they'll go up with Matt Sager, our strength and conditioning coach, and do a lift. Come back to the locker room after, get dressed. Then we go over our practice plan with them, because I hate stopping practice in the middle to drop the different drills. So then we get on the ice at 6:30. And really the length of practice really depends upon the condition of the ice. Because if we beat the ice up too bad and it gets to be too snowy, or it gets too many grooves in it and the puck doesn't roll or slide right, now all of a sudden it's a worthless practice. I mean, think about if you threw a truckload of snow on a basketball court, you know, how much could they get done after an hour of practice? So what we'll usually do is work our skill development at the beginning of practice. Then we'll work systems in the middle, and we like to play some competitive small area games that will get us ready for the coming weekend.
Has your practices changed over the years? Have you adopted some new things? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I used to be very, very drill oriented, and practices were boring. And I think that, again, part of that is from the junior hockey, because when I'm out recruiting, the games are at night. I go to practices during the day, and I can watch other teams practice. I got to learn some new drills, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but the one thing I've never had in my life is a head coach. I've been the head coach my entire career, with the exception of the first 2 years with Don Olson. Otherwise, I've never been an assistant. So I didn't get the experience of going and seeing how other coaches ran things. I had to kind of do it myself. And like yesterday, we've got a new thing in Division III hockey now, that we can play 3-on-3 overtime. Well, we've never done that before. So yesterday I made calls to about 4 or 5 of my buddies that are coaching junior hockey, and I asked them for their input, and I picked their brains on their philosophies on how to play D3 or how to play 3-on-3 hockey. You know, it's my 32nd year, but it doesn't mean I can't learn. So, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so we just try to outwork people.
So one of the things you got to learn this year is a lot of new faces. You graduated 13, and so a big turnover this year. How challenging is that for you as a coach, and how challenging is it for the Cardinals heading into this year, being that you have so many new faces this year?
Well, right now it's really challenging, because even though they're 20 years old and they have a lot of experience in their background, college hockey is totally different. And right now we're fighting through some injuries. We've had 2 exhibitions where we had a few guys go down and things like that. So trying to find the right line combinations, trying to get them to buy in, and the biggest thing that we haven't had to do for a few years is teach systems. You know, in the past, our upperclassmen have all been there. And a lot of the teaching of the systems they did in the preseason open hockey sessions. Well, with 9 new freshmen in our top 12, you know, our top 15, it's been a lot more of a teaching session than it has been.
So, Bill, we're going to take a break right now, but when we come back here on the Cardinals Nest, we'll learn more about who some of those freshmen are and some expectations for this year. So stay tuned. We'll be back with that and more on HBC's Cardinals Nest.
Schultz Strategic Gunworks, Sugarloaf Ford, and Brewski's Bar and Grill in Utica would like to remind you to make safe choices when getting behind the wheel of a vehicle.
Driving while under the influence of alcohol or drugs is the #1 cause of teen deaths. Distracted driving increases your chances to have a traffic accident. Cell phones and passengers are both distractions to a teen driver. Drowsiness impairs driving performance and reaction time, thereby increasing the likelihood of having a car accident.
And we're back here on the Cardinals Nest on our men's hockey special this week with head coach Bill Moore. I'm Dean Beckman alongside Sports Information Director Donnie Netto. And Bill, we talked about how you graduated a lot of players last year, and they're off doing other things now, but you're still in the same position, right? So that means you have to adjust with a lot of incoming freshmen. However, you still have a couple of seniors now on the team this year in Austin Arnold and Ryan Charco. So maybe talk about them a little bit. We'll start with the seniors.
Sure. Austin is our captain. He's doing a phenomenal job of leadership. He's going to be a mainstay as a defensive defenseman for us. Just, any important situation that we have coming down the clutch where we're up a goal or we're at the end of a period and killing a penalty or something, he's going to be out there. And again, the guys really respect him because of his work ethic and the things that he does. Ryan is definitely a power type forward. He'll play very physical in the defensive end. He'll also help us in the offensive end because we converted him from a defenseman to a forward.
Okay.
So he'll play some center, some wing for us. And again, his experience and his leadership is going to be vital to the success that we have.
It's interesting that you said that because you look at kids nowadays growing up playing hockey, they get so pigeonholed into one position, whether it be I'm a center or I'm a left wing, but you get somebody like Ryan who can do both, and you've done that many times in the past as well, where you've taken a defenseman and made him into a successful forward. How important is that versatility that you have in the players that you bring in?
Well, it's really big, and the most important thing is their skating skills, because if they can't skate, they can't convert. And that's the most important thing. It's a lot harder to convert a forward to becoming a defenseman than it is a defenseman to become a forward. So we've had a lot more success converting defensemen to forwards than we have the other way around.
Bill, maybe go a little deeper on that, because anybody watching would say, well, they're hockey players. Of course they can skate. So what do you mean by if they can skate, they can convert?
Well, again, just like everybody can run, but some people run fast. Some people run fluidly. Some people look like they're carrying a load of bricks.
Right.
The same is.
Why did he look at you when he said that?
the same is true with skating. And the kids who are quick and fluid on their skates usually don't have as much difficulty transitioning forward skating to backward skating, pivoting and turning, that kind of thing. The kids who are a little more clumsy on their skates have a much more difficult time changing, because forwards skate backwards very little, and the defensemen have to be forward, backward all the time. So that's why we say it's a lot easier to convert a defenseman, because somebody that can already skate forward, backward, pivot, turn can skate forward for sure.
Okay. Good.
One of the people that graduated last year, Aaron Davis, played most of the games between the pipes for you, so you've got that position to really fill. I know you've got some returners who did see some playing time this year, but you're really going to need to rely on them this year. Yeah. Talk a little bit about Nick and Al.
Yeah, well, Nick Nast is our number one right now. Al Rogers is our number two, and we've had 2 scrimmages right now, or exhibition games, I'd say, and Nick hasn't allowed a goal yet, so he's a very, very good goaltender. Competes, probably one of the most normal goaltenders you'd ever want to see, because goaltenders kind of have a screw loose. But he is probably one of the most normal kids you'd ever want to see. So he's really, really level-headed. Does a great job.
I had the pleasure of teaching Nick last year in my freshman class, and I agree wholeheartedly. Now, he's from California,
yes,
so how did you find Nick last year?
Through juniors. I mean, right now, this year, we'll have 17 states represented in 3 countries on our roster. So that's just part of going all over, I guess. Like last month when I was gone, I put almost 4,000 miles on the car to find kids, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I think you were going to talk a little bit more about Al.
Yeah, Al's a little different than Nick. He's not as calm, but he's very athletic. More of what we would call a flopper, but he's very, very good at it, and competes like you can't even believe. And again, in the 2 scrimmages that we've had, he's only given up 1 goal. So, and it was an unfortunate one at that, but. We're very, very excited about our top 2 goaltenders right now.
And then as we move up to the defensemen, I know you talked a little bit about Austin, but one of the people you certainly have to talk about, Kyle Mee, who has had 2 outstanding years for you defensively. Talk a little bit about him and the rest of the defensive corps.
Well, Kyle, I hope, last year he was on the ballot for All-American. We really hope that he can have a season that would warrant him getting another opportunity at that. Very, very offensive, unbelievably skilled. How he's not a Division I player, I don't know. We've given up on trying to figure out who's a Division I and who isn't. But unbelievable person. and he's also one of our captains. So we rely heavily on him on the power play. We rely heavily on him all the time. So Seth Camras is another one that we're going to rely on a lot. He is, again, more of the defensive style defenseman. He's one of those kids that will block shots, do anything that he can to get the job done. And then we have someone that transferred to our school last year that's a local kid, Alex Rickoff. And Alex is solid, you know, when he keeps things simple. And again, he's one that I'll take in a battle in the corner anytime. He wins his battles most of the time.
I see you've got Alex DeBacco back again this year. He's a junior this year, a lot of the playing time last year.
Yeah, he's another one that was a D last year, and we converted him to a center this year because he just flies. And we love the speed on our big rink, so he also got converted to a center. So he'll be a top line center for us, and hopefully, you know, we can get him to get that confidence to score goals. But
well, now we've talked about the converted defensemen to forwards. Talk a little bit about some of the forwards that are returning that that you can look for, you know, to provide some offensive punch.
Sure. Andrew Cummings is a junior for us. He is one of our captains, and he's just a workhorse. You know, he'll be the first to admit that his skating isn't as smooth as he'd like it to be, but he will just bull everybody. You know, he's a small kid that's tough and strong and shoots really well. Dylan Robertson is a junior now as well. He was the points leader in the Superior International Junior Hockey League when he was playing there. We'll really need to depend on him to put some points up. Jack and Tommy Stang are returning. Both very, very high skilled guys, more setup guys than goal scorers. But those kinds of players that we'll really depend on for returners. And then Ryan Stoynich is a freshman that we got out of the Alberta Junior Hockey League. He's going to be a top line center as well, one of the top two lines. Again, very, very talented. And you know, I hate picking out guys and talking about them because you're always going to forget guys when you're thinking at this quickly and things like that. But I'm very, very excited about our forwards. They work really hard, they listen, they do what we can do, and now it's just a matter to see if we can keep some of them healthy because this first part of our schedule is a killer.
You know, one of the, you know, I know you don't like to single people out, but when I looked at somebody who from his freshman year to his sophomore year, you look at Jack Stang and what he did last year compared to what he did freshman year. I mean, it was almost like freshman year was that learning curve.
Yeah.
And then last year, he really seemed to come on and really provided a lot of punch. To me, it was very surprising.
Well, the biggest thing with Jack is he is probably the smartest player we have on our team. He really thinks the game well. He sees lanes. And I think the biggest thing that he had to do was get out of the junior hockey thing because he could get away with being super fancy, and here it didn't work as well. And I think his sophomore year he really found that, and now he's even better. So we're very excited about Jack. You
know, you were mentioning off camera before we started this about your schedule, but before we talk about that, one of the changes this year was you guys got to start a week earlier. So like you have mentioned a couple times, you've been able to have a couple of scrimmages, really exhibition games if you want to call them that, as you prepare for the hockey showcase to kick off the season. How important was that compared to what you had to deal with in years past?
Unbelievably important, because in the past, our school has a policy of open tryouts, so anybody that wants to come and try out can. So we usually have tryouts Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, pick the team Thursday, and then the following Friday we had a game already. You know, yeah. So this year we got to pick the team on Thursday, have a practice on Friday. We did an exhibition game at Stout on the Saturday. Then we came back, practiced like a normal week, had another exhibition on Friday. So they got the feel of what a week's schedule would be like. And obviously we don't know how it's going to turn out when we get to the showcase this weekend, but we sure think it's going to help a lot.
And obviously let's talk about the showcase. This will be the last MIAC Men's Hockey Showcase. You've got Gustavus and Concordia in your 2 games. Talk a little bit about the weekend, what you want to see. Obviously 2 wins, but what do you want to see from your guys as you evaluate this come Sunday morning?
I want to see us score goals in something other than the power play. And in our 2 exhibition games, we lost to Stout 3-2 with 3 seconds left in overtime. And we beat Marion, who was in the national tournament last year, 3-2. But every one of our goals has been a power play goal. And we have not scored a 5-on-5 goal yet. So we've really been working on entering the zone and attacking the net and trying to get our guys in better positions to score goals 5-on-5.
And how about the rest of the schedule once we get past the showcase? I know you open up with St. Thomas at home, right?
Yeah.
And so how is the schedule laying out for you, do you think?
Well, it's very, very tough the first half. We play St. Thomas, which received votes for rankings in the national rankings. Then we turn around with Stevens Point, who is ranked 2nd in the nation. Then we turn around with Eau Claire, who is ranked 8th in the nation. Then we have Augsburg, who is rated 9th in the nation. And then we go to St. John's, who also received votes in the national rankings. So our first 8 weeks, the only weeks we're not playing a ranked opponent is at Lake Forest over Thanksgiving in the showcase. And then to make it even worse, 10 of our first 12 are on the road.
Right, right. Well, it's one way to introduce the 9 freshmen to MIAC hockey,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, what we're talking about is as long as we're still in playoff position somewhere along the line, we've got an opportunity second half to really make a push. And I'm not saying we can't beat the teams in the first half by any means, but everything is such a crapshoot right now without knowing what the freshmen are going to do and how they're going to perform against those good teams.
So, Bill, just about a minute left here, maybe slightly more, but tell us about some of the rules changes, or at least the main ones that will affect the style of play and things like that.
Well, the biggest one, and we've really seen it in the exhibitions, is how tightly they're calling head contact and checks from behind. You know, little hits that we would have normally thought, okay, might be a 2-minute, might not even be a penalty, are now getting a 5 and a game misconduct. And so I think that is a big one. Another rule change that's going to be a lot different for all of us is after 5-on-5 overtime, we go to 3-on-3 overtime, which I really, really like, especially playing on our big sheet of ice with our speed. But that'll be different. You know, I've never done that in my life. So
is there going to be a time limit on? So the 5-on-5 is 5 minutes.
Is 5 minutes. The 3-on-3 is 5 minutes, and then it goes into the shootout.
And that's only in conference games, correct?
That is only in conference games. The rest of the games, at the end of the 5-minute overtime, it ends tied.
All right, and real quick, next week we hope to have your son on the show. Greg is the head coach for the women's program. So, Donnie, we've got the 2 Moors bookcased against one another here.
Is it? You know, I know we're running up against the time here, but having Greg as the women's coach is, for you as a father, it's got to feel pretty cool to be able to see, you know, how far your son has progressed in terms of becoming a head coach.
Absolutely, and he's going to be a much better coach than I ever was. You know, I mean, he knows things now at 28, 29, 30 years old that I would have never even thought of, you know.
You know, he said 28, 29, 30 because he doesn't know how old Greg is.
30.
All right, so we got to run. Bill, thanks for being on the program. Hey, good luck this season.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right, thanks for watching the Cardinals Nest. Tune in again for his son, Greg. He'll be on next week's show right here on HBC.